Beyond the well-known tragedy of the Titanic lies a story that has waited to be told.
In the depths of the Atlantic lies the wreck of the Titanic. But more than a century after the ship sank, new technology is shedding light on what happened on that fateful night.
For decades, we have only known part of the truth about history's greatest maritime disaster. Now, new evidence finally reveals what really happened. Here are 10 Titanic discoveries that will change everything. Number 10. The lost Diana statue, rediscovered after 112 years. Deep in the dark waters of the North Atlantic, something incredible happened in July 2024. A bronze statue that had been missing for decades suddenly appeared again after 112 years underwater. The Diana of Versailles statue, a beautiful 2-foot-tall figure of the Roman goddess, once sat proudly on the fireplace in the Titanic's first-class lounge. When the mighty ship sank in 1912, the lounge was torn apart and Diana was thrown into the debris field. She was spotted once in 1986, but then vanished again. The team from RMS Titanic, Inc. spent 20 days searching the ocean floor with high-tech robots. With just hours left on their final day, they found Diana lying face up in the mud, perfectly preserved and gleaming. Number 9. Metal-eating bacteria are devouring the Titanic. Something hungry is slowly eating away at the Titanic wreck, and it is not what you might expect. In 2010, Dr. Henrietta Mann from Dalhousie University in Canada made a shocking discovery. She found a brand new type of bacteria living inside the rusty icicle-like structures covering the ship. These tiny creatures, called RMS Titanic, literally feast on iron and steel. They stick to the metal surfaces and work together with other microbes to speed up the rusting process. The bacteria create strange formations that look like orange icicles hanging from the ship walls. These rusticles are actually alive and growing. Scientists believe these metal-munching microbes could completely destroy what remains of the Titanic by 2030. The bacteria survive in darkness and freezing water miles below surface. Number 8. Massive bow section collapse reveals accelerating decay. The famous front part of the Titanic, where Jack and Rose stood in the movie, has changed forever. In July 2024, underwater robots made a sad discovery when they reached the iconic bow section. A 15-foot-long piece of the railing that had stood strong for over 100 years had finally given up and fallen to the ocean floor. The port-side railing, which had amazed visitors and appeared in countless photos since the wreck was found in 1985, now lies broken on the sea bottom. This railing stood perfectly intact in 2022, but the harsh Atlantic Ocean environment finally won the battle. The collapse shows how quickly the ship is falling apart after a century underwater. Scientists say this proves the ship will not last. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 7. Coal fire weakened the hull before iceberg impact. Hidden beneath layers of history, a blazing secret waited over 100 years to be told. Deep inside the Titanic's belly, a coal fire raged for approximately 3 weeks before the ship ever met its icy fate. Irish journalist Sinan Maloney made this stunning discovery in 2017 when he examined forgotten photographs from 1912. The fire burned in a 3-story high bunker next to Boiler Room 6 on the starboard side, reaching temperatures around 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. These newly found pictures showed a mysterious 30-foot-long black mark along the ship's right side, exactly where the iceberg would later strike. The intense heat made the steel hull brittle, reducing its strength by up to 75%. This fire created the perfect storm of disaster, weakening the very spot that would seal the Titanic's doom. Number 6. The missing binoculars key that could have prevented disaster. A simple brass key became one of history's most tragic forgotten items. Second Officer David Blair from Scotland was supposed to sail on the Titanic's maiden voyage, but the White Star Line bumped him off just days before departure. In his rush to leave the ship at Southampton, England, Blair accidentally kept the key to the crow's nest storage locker in his pocket. Inside that locked box sat the binoculars that could have saved 1,500 lives. When lookout Fred Fleet spotted the iceberg that fateful night, he was using only his naked eyes through the darkness. At the official inquiry after the disaster, Fleet testified that with binoculars, they would have seen the iceberg sooner. When asked how much sooner, his haunting reply was simple: enough to get out of the way. One forgotten key changed the course of history forever. Number 5. Digital twin reveals ship's violent 6.3-second death spiral. Scientists have brought the Titanic back to life using the most advanced underwater technology ever deployed. In 2022, deep-sea mapping company Magellan spent 3 weeks capturing an incredible 715,000 photographs of the wreck, sitting 12,500 feet below the Atlantic Ocean. Using remotely operated vehicles, they gathered 16 terabytes of data to create a perfect digital twin of the entire ship. This revolutionary 3D model revealed shocking new details about the disaster. Computer simulations now show that the Titanic's collision with the iceberg lasted exactly 6.3 seconds, not the longer impact many believed. The digital reconstruction proves the ship didn't suffer one massive hole, but rather a series of small punctures across 6 watertight compartments. This precise recreation allows experts to walk through the wreck as if the water had been drained away, solving mysteries that have puzzled historians for over a century. Number 4. Faulty rivets, not steel, caused the catastrophic hull failure. The mighty Titanic fell victim to tiny iron rivets that packed a deadly secret. In 1998, scientists from the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the United States discovered something shocking in the ship's wreckage. The wrought iron rivets holding the hull together contained 3 times more slag than what we allow today. This glassy waste material made the rivets brittle as glass when exposed to freezing North Atlantic waters. When the iceberg struck, these weak rivets simply popped off like buttons, causing the hull plates to separate and water to rush in. The damage wasn't a massive 300-foot gash as people believed for decades, but just 12 square feet of openings. If stronger steel rivets had been used throughout the ship instead of cheap iron ones in the bow and stern sections, hundreds more lives could have been saved. Number 3. Third-class passengers were deliberately trapped below decks. The truth about third-class passengers on Titanic reveals a darker reality than many want to admit. While movies show dramatic locked gates, the real story was more subtle but equally deadly. Third-class passengers faced a maze of confusing corridors deep within the ship, 5 to 6 decks below the lifeboats. The order to evacuate third-class women and children didn't come until 50 minutes after the collision, around 12:30 in the morning. By then, precious time had been lost. Of the 709 third-class passengers aboard, only 174 survived. That's a shocking 76% death rate. Language barriers made navigation nearly impossible, as most signs were in English only. Waist-high gates did exist between classes, and some were reportedly locked during the early evacuation. While not deliberately murdered, third-class passengers were systematically disadvantaged by their location and delayed evacuation orders. Number 2. Captain Smith didn't die a coward. For over a century, cruel rumors have painted Captain Edward Smith as a coward who shot himself as Titanic sank. These lies started just 3 days after the disaster, when newspapers published sensational headlines claiming the captain committed suicide. Author Dan Parks spent years researching Smith's final moments for his 2025 book, and found these stories were completely false. Multiple survivors actually saw Smith heroically trying to save passengers in the freezing water. Cook Isaac Maynard watched the captain swimming fully clothed, still wearing his captain's hat, refusing help, and telling others to save themselves. Other witnesses described Smith rescuing a baby and handing it to a lifeboat before swimming back toward the sinking ship. The suicide stories came from unreliable witnesses who were already in lifeboats long before the ship's final moments. Smith either drowned or froze to death like so many others that night. But he died with honor, not shame. Number 1. The wireless room hero's final desperate messages. 2 young men saved over 700 lives in Titanic's final hours through sheer determination. Jack Phillips, age 25, and Harold Bride, age 22, worked frantically in the ship's wireless room as water rose around them. Phillips stayed at his telegraph key, sending distress signals until the very last moment, even after Captain Smith released them from duty. The closest rescue ship, Carpathia, was 58 miles away and rushing to help because of their messages. At 2:08 in the morning, Phillips sent his final transmission before the wireless room flooded. Bride later wrote about Phillips's incredible courage, saying he learned to love him that night watching him stick to his work while everyone else panicked. Phillips didn't survive the sinking, but his heroic efforts meant hundreds of people were rescued instead of everyone perishing. Without these brave wireless operators working until the final 3 minutes, no one would have been saved that terrible night. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching.